Hi, my name is Glenn Hustleman. I'm just making this video for the free accounting software users to show you guys how to report JobMaker information through free accounting software so that the ATO will pay your JobMaker credit. So I'm on the ATO webpage here, and there is a guide called JobMaker Hiring Credit Guide, which you should read. It covers a lot of information that I'm not going to cover. I'm just going to focus on the information that you can report through free accounting software to the ATO. So, there's things about how to register and whether you're eligible or not, and that kind of thing that I'm not going to cover. So, just going down to this adding employees through single touch payroll section. And there's, again, more information like eligibility criteria and that kind of stuff. Now, one thing that's relevant here to keep in mind is the JobMaker periods. So there are JobMaker periods which are kind of about 3 months or quarters. They're not exactly the quarter dates though, they're these dates here, and it'll be relevant to know which quarter you're in, and so keep in mind these dates over here. Okay, so what it says here is you can add new employees by running a payroll event through single touch payroll, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate here. And that'll result in the information being pre-filled. So this is quite similar to what we did with JobKeeper, although there's a couple differences that I'll point out. So they've listed here the sort of key information that gets reported through single touch payroll that they're going to use to determine whether your employee is eligible for JobMaker or not. The TFN is obviously important. What they're saying is if there is an exemption, that's not going to work. Family name, given name, etc. Okay. Pay commencement date. Okay, that's the employment start date. So, and I'll show you in free accounting software where to set that up as well. So, pay cessation date if the employee has finished. So I'll actually show you where that is as well. The date of birth, which is his next three fields, is relevant because it depends on the employee's age. So I'll show you where to set that up. And the allowance. So there's a few fields here that relate to the allowance. And if you remember with JobKeeper, you used an allowance to flag that employee was entitled to it, and this is the same. So here we have the code that we're going to use to show the ATO that this employer is entitled to JobMaker hiring credit, and I'll put that on the web page where this video is as well. Okay, if you want to remove the employee, there's another code there, and I'll put that up there as well. So if you've accidentally nominated them and you want to sort of unnominate them, then you use that. Okay, so let me first show you how to set up this other allowance type. So going into free accounting software, I set up a business over here called JobMaker Demo. It's just a warning because my computer crashed before, so I haven't closed this file. If you get this warning, you can just click OK. Okay. Now, what we want to set up is a tax code to bring in that for this other allowance code. So going to tax codes and click new tax code. Now just give it a name. In fact, let me just go and check what that code was. So I'm going to actually just copy that. And paste it in here. In fact, sometimes I've noticed these dashes actually have some formatting associated with them, so I'm actually going to delete it and retype the dash so I can be sure that I've got this in there correctly. So it's job maker hiring credit dash NOM, so or JMHC dash NOM. So I guess that stands for job making hiring credit dash nomination. So job maker credit nomination, active true. For these tax codes, it's probably not really relevant. Asset or liability, I'll just put liability. BAS classification, we're just paying a 0 on this. We're not actually using this allowance to pay any actual amount. This is for informational purposes only. So for BAS, I'm putting not applicable. For the payment summary, still using this word payment summary, but I think with single touch payroll it's called income statement or whatever it is. You know what I mean anyway. It's individual non-business. Gross classification is employment allowances. There is an employment allowances other underscore taxable as well, but we're not putting any amount through this, so either of them will actually work. I'm going to just select the normal one. And classification for the tax amount or tax component of this is 0, is not applicable. So okay, saving that tax code. Then we also need to create an account to pick up or link to this tax code. So going into the accounts and new account, job maker hiring credit nomination, classification reference, I'll call it an expense, active true. It's kind of irrelevant in terms of applying super or leave. I'll just put false, and in the default tax code, that's where we pick up this job maker credit nomination tax code. Payment deduction type is going to have to be earnings, okay, because that will determine whether it is selectable in that section of the payslip where we want to select it. Okay, and then save. So that's how you set up the job maker hiring credit nomination account. Okay, and so now there were some other things that I wanted to point out as well. Okay, so that's now set up that allowance and we can use that. But if we just scroll back up here, I did say I was going to point out some of this other stuff. So, alright, you guys know where the TFN and the name and stuff like that is. Okay, so let's start with the pay commencement date. Okay, so going to here in the counterparties, I've got the employee set up here. So I've just put the name. You'll probably have more information there. Anyway, going to the payroll details, there is a start date and an end date here. So this is the commencement and finish or termination date for the employee. So let's just say, in fact, I'm not sure what a appropriate date is for this, but I would guess that something in this kind of range would work. So let's just make it the 1st of January 2021. Okay. Now, if you're doing like the first payslip for the employee, you probably wouldn't have an end date for them already, because probably wouldn't terminate them that early on. But let's just say, for the purpose of the demonstration, that we're going to put an end date, okay, and save. So that's the start and end date, and I'll show you where that goes through onto the payslip in a moment. Alright, so that was the commencement date, cessation date, which we put in as well. Okay, date of birth. So on the TFN declaration, there is a date of birth. Okay, and that's where the software picks up the date of birth from. So if we go to creating a batch, say the payment date is the 12th, and it's for the period, or for the week 4th to the 10th. So I've just put week ending 10 January. Then go to the transactions and add a new payslip for demo employee. I'll just shrink that font down so that we can see this. There's a lot of information on this one page, but anyway, already after just selecting the employee, we can see that the tax file number has come through. It's just an obviously example type tax file number. The employee's payroll ID is shown there. That was one of the fields mentioned. You don't really have to think much about that. That's going to be there all the time, no matter what. Employee's name and the date of birth. Okay. Okay, more information down here. Employment start date, 1st of January. Employment end date, 28th of January. So that was the start and end date that we entered on the employee setup. Okay, and then nothing else. And I haven't paid this employee yet, so there's no year-to-date figures at all. Now, it's worth remembering that under this heading, Pay Event Info, that is the information that goes to the ATO. Okay, so all of that information goes to the ATO under Pay Event Info. This information outside of that, like above that and to the left here, does not actually go to the ATO. I mean, some of that information is restated here. You know, like the pay period start and end date and so on. And it's restated so that you can see exactly what is going to the ATO. That is kind of relevant to know, particularly if you're trying to make sure that the ATO is getting all this information. So it's clear what information is going to the ATO. Now we want to add that allowance code to nominate that employee as being eligible for job maker. So add a line and select job maker and put a 0. And what that does is it brings in this allowance type other. Allowance description is JMHC-NOM, which is exactly what they wanted down here. Okay, so Now you would, I guess you'd put your, just to make it more realistic, you'd put your normal pay on there as well. One of the requirements of JobMaker relates to how many hours they're working throughout the quarter, but and just pointing it out, that number of hours does not go to the ATO. The pay event info is what gets sent to the ATO. So if we scroll down here, that number of hours is not stated here anywhere, so you know that that is not being sent to the ATO. Let me just save this. Now, so the question is, alright, well, I guess that brings us to the next point, really, isn't it? So if I scroll down here, there is another thing that needs to go to the ATO, and that is this section here. So the employee must work or be paid 20 hours or more, an average of 20 hours more per week across each JobMaker period. So if the employee, if those hours that you've put on the payslip don't go to the ATO, how do they know? Well, there is another allowance for it. So here is a link to that one. Okay, and you have to tell the ATO each for each JobMaker period whether that employee worked those above that average number of hours. So that is done by using another allowance. Okay, so there is the code over there, and if you've accidentally reported that and you wanted to remove it, you could use this code over here. So you'll notice that there's actually a separate code for each period, and I guess unlike JobKeeper, where you just reported that they're eligible from that fortnight onwards, you're going to have to report this one every single fortnight. I mean, not fortnight, every single quarter, okay, or every single JobMaker period. So let me just set up this first one, and I won't demo the setup of these following ones because it's all pretty much exactly the same. So I'll copy this text here and go back to free accounting software. Now we'll go to the tax codes and new tax code and paste in that. Oh, hang on, that was not the right code. Copy that. Okay, so this JobMaker hiring credit -P01. So I guess that means period 01. And I guess it means over average 20 hours. Active is true. I'll just make that a liability. Again, this is just going to be a 0 that gets reported. No actual dollars against this. So BAS classification is not applicable. For the payment summary, it's individual non-business, and we can just use this individual non-business employment allowances other code here, and then not applicable. Okay, now we need an account that links to this tax code. So going back to the accounts and new account, JobMaker hiring credit period 1 over 20 hours over, let's say, average 20 hours. Okay, so in the default tax code, we want to link to that tax code that we've just set up, and payment deduction type is earnings, and that's just so that it appears within that section of the payslip. So going back to the payslip now, we can edit it to also add this thing, which will just flag to the ATO that that employee has worked an average of over 20 hours. I guess you probably need to wait till the end of the quarter, or even even after the end of the quarter, before you can confirm that that is the case. And I'll let you refer to reporting dates for when to report that to the ATO. Main thing I'm trying to sort of just show here is how to report it. Okay, and so once I've added that JobMaker hiring credit period 01, again we get another allowance here, JobMaker hiring credit period 01. Okay, now I've saved that, and you would go and lodge that with the payroll in the way you normally lodge your single touch payroll. That should mean then that when you at some point go to the ATO website to claim your JobMaker, that this employee is pre-filled and you can claim your JobMaker. Alright, well, also have a look at the web page and the text on the web page where this video is, because if I have forgotten to mention anything, I'm going to put it up there, and also review all the information that's on the ATO website. There's a lot there that I haven't covered, but I hope the video has been useful to you, and thanks for watching.